And we are here today on the AJ and Titus show with the world famous, the notorious Mr. Gary Moore.
Wow.
Now, Gary,
notorious, world famous.
Yeah, world famous and notorious, and he's also AKA.
I'm not Beltman. I am not Beltman.
I suspect he is, because you never see him and Beltman in the same place.
I bear a resemblance to Beltman, but I am not Beltman.
I need to be educated on who
You don't know about
Beltman
Beltman? Oh man.
Can we get a history on Beltman real quick?
Beltman is a superhero that wears a giant bee on his chest, and he has a cape and he has a mask, so you don't really know what he looks like. And he has belts hanging from his waist, and he goes around lifting up guys' pants. So
okay,
Beltman is all about getting guys.
I wish he was Beltman.
I know.
Not to say.
Send him to Walmart on University.
Beltman has an arch enemy too.
Yeah.
Every superhero has an arch enemy, and Beltman's arch enemy is Tush the Terrible.
Oh God!
So you just got to watch out, and he'll be out as the weather gets warmer. You'll see more and more of
Tush the
Beltman
Terrible
going around lifting up guys. His slogan is "Show your mind, not your behind."
Now,
So you heard the slogan?
No, I just flowed with you. I never heard that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
with the movement.
Does Beltman have his own theme song?
Beltman. Well, you know what? There's a song by Dooney, "Pull Your Pants Up," that is played on our radio station WPNV. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. And Beltman, from what I understand, he really likes that song.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, maybe that'll be a new production at the Peoria Players Theater. But right now, why don't you tell us what's happening up there?
Hey, I am honored to direct a "Raisin in the Sun" at Peoria Players Theater. "Raisin in the Sun" will open on March 6th, and it'll go that weekend, and then it'll be the following weekend. In the evening, those Saturday and Sunday shows are going to be at 7:30, and then we have Sunday matinees at 2 o'clock. A lot of people are familiar with the "Raisin in the Sun," the old movie, black and white with Sidney Poitier. That's a classic.
Yes.
And then a few years ago, P. Diddy did a "Raisin in the Sun" with Felicia Rashad as the mom, and P. Diddy was the main character. I like the Sidney Poitier version.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You
Not to knock P. Diddy.
No, for sure.
What character are you playing in the movie?
I'm not playing anything. I am directing.
You're directing this?
So I'm directing a "Raisin in the Sun."
Hold on.
At Peoria
The
Players.
director, I talked to him yesterday. You know what he's doing yesterday? He's like, "Oh man, I'm moving the set around. I'm lugging this over here. I got this on my shoulder. What do you need? What do you need?" I'm sitting there thinking they're working him hard because he's, like one of the stars of the show. The director?
I'm directing.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's incredible.
So,
Is this your first one directing?
No, I directed a "Raisin in the Sun" at Bradley in 2013. And it was a student cast. It was a different cast. It was a great production. I mean, we I think had one of the biggest houses at Bradley for their season that year. And man, the talent was outstanding. One of the great things about directing in a college setting is that when you have a production meeting, and you can appreciate this, you tell the guys sitting around the table, "Hey, this play takes place in Chicago." And they have the L train. It'd be nice if we could hear the roar of the L train in the background, and then as it goes through, the lights in the apartment flicker, right? And so you just throw out these ideas. The great thing about Bradley's production was the guy who's in charge of lighting is an instructor. He's a professor, and so then he goes back and tells his classroom that he's teaching, "Okay, make that happen for your grade."
Oh dang!
So anything that I dreamed of,
grade,
they pretty much were able to come up with, because it was like the students had to come up with whatever the special effects were, for their grade. So that made it really, really nice. But Peoria Players, this is one of the oldest theater houses in the country. Right up there on University.
Tell people exactly where it's located. Some people get it confused with Bradley's Cornstalk and whatnot.
Right. So Peoria Players is on University, right off of Lake Street, and you'll always see the big marquee. They've had a great season, having a great season. They did Kinky Boots after Raisin in the Sun, they're going to do Mamma Mia. We're the only drama this season. Everything else has been a musical. They did Tarzan the musical. I wasn't in it. Okay, all right. And they did some.
I thought you were playing the lead.
I
thought you were setting me up.
He could have played the lead.
Right.
I could have.
In Tarzan.
If Tarzan gained about 200 pounds, I would have got that role.
Easily.
But no. I'll be Tarzan after summer, maybe, if AJ can get me back in shape.
So, A Raisin in the Sun. So, I should ask you a question.
Sure.
What do you know about A Raisin in the Sun? See, AJ already knows.
Yes, I do.
But I'm curious, do you know anything about A Raisin in the Sun?
All I know is P. Diddy's version of it, and I'm looking forward to this now. I will be there in the front row. I'm going to be there with my wife, AJ, of A Sharp Effects Salon, and we're going to be there live critiquing you as you go with the cameras rolling live
Critiquing.
during the
I'm not
performance.
going to critique.
Yeah, don't critique. Okay, don't-
Right there.
Yeah, don't critique. But yeah, a lot of people are familiar with the plot.
I've never seen a play of this. This is going to be my first time
Yeah.
ever seeing it.
The patriarch of the family, the father dies, he's dead, and he left like $10,000 in insurance money. The family gets $10,000 in insurance money. And so the question with the family is, what do we do with the money?
Right.
You know, the son wants to open a liquor store. The mama, who's Christian, wants to buy a new house.
Right.
You got a daughter who wants to go to college, and you know they're all cramped and squeezed up together in this little apartment, and that's where the conflict and the drama come in. And it's, you know, it's a story that's universal. I think every family can relate to those dynamics.
Sure.
You know, what do you do with when your family gets a little money? You want to be a business owner. You know, your old man just opened a business.
Yes.
You know, I mean, just the whole concept of being a business owner.
Right.
And then, you know, going to college. You know, so the daughter would be the first to go to college. A lot of us have experienced that.
Yeah,
you know, black families. You know, usually that one that goes. You know, a lot of expectations on that person. And so it's you know, again, it's universal. There are a lot of things that people can relate to. And then, you know, the big thing with A Raisin in the Sun is that the house the mama buys is in an all-white neighborhood. And so now you're getting into that, you know, you're getting into, you know, racial issues. So it's deep, man.
It's in Pekin.
I remember I took theater my senior year in college. And I can't remember exactly what part, I believe it was the father's part, but in order to pass part of the class, I had to memorize his part. And I'm interested to see, so it can bring it all back to me. And I remember them telling me I did a good job. Like, and I just was, you know, I think it kind of fit my personality at the time. And I got introduced to it ironically through Tupac, because Tupac played a part of A Raisin in the Sun, which got his acting chops going.
Wow.
He became interested after playing this part in the actual play back in Baltimore, Maryland.
Wow.
That's how he got into like acting, and I was like, okay. So when I got to my senior year, I was like, oh, I want to do this one.
Okay.
So that's why I ended up getting into it. So I actually participated in using that part to pass a class. So I thought they told me I did a good job. So I was a little upset because I should have continued with that class, but it was like the end of my senior year. So
You know, he could have been
I could have
doing
been
Denzel.
Yeah,
Best
that's
actor.
solid.
Our next Denzel.
Close, close. Maybe an extra. Like I could have, you know, something like that. But I thought it was pretty cool.
But yeah, A Raisin is, it really is like a template. Lorraine Hansberry was a genius in terms of what she put in it that is timeless. And a lot of folks, like you were talking about Tupac, a lot of people cut their teeth on A Raisin in the Sun in black theater. You know, it's
They have
kind of
these
like,
productions all around the world. I mean,
oh man,
every city has this.
yeah, I mean, there's one happening in Chicago this weekend, you know. And so, like, she puts in Africa. The daughter who's going away to college is being wooed, pursued. One of her suitors' boyfriends is from Africa, and he brings her African garments, and, you know, she gets into African dance and that kind of thing. And so there's all kinds of things that any black family any black person can relate to. And then, like I said, you got some universal themes that all people can relate to in terms of what do you do with money,
Sure,
and,
absolutely.
and how do you...
Conversations we've all had. I mean, we've all had these, you know, what happens if something happens to you, what do we do?
Yeah.
So,
And you know, families fall apart over money.
they do,
Absolutely.
instantly.
More often than not.
Faster than anything else, money will damage just about everything in the world, man, just like that. It'd take you a lifetime to build, but a little bit of money will tear it down like it was never there in the first place.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Can you tell us about some of the cast members, like who you're having the privilege of working with? And,
Sure.
and
Ronnie Hudson plays Walter Lee. So Walter Lee is the son who wants to open up a liquor store. And unfortunately for him, he doesn't have any business training. Right. And so that's
perfect person to open up a liquor store.
Yeah, that's who I was, I believe. Yep.
Yeah. And so Ronnie Hudson II plays Walter Lee. We have a young lady named Tamika Mason who is playing the role of Mama. And I want to say Tamika is in her 20s, maybe 30, but she's in her 20s, and she's playing the role of a 60-year-old lady.
Wow.
And so, you know, the makeup person is an African-American young lady named Deshana who's doing makeup.
Yeah.
And when you see Tamika, she's going to look like Grandma.
Yeah.
She's going to look like Big Mama.
For sure.
You know, but she's like 20-something.
20-something years old.
So Tamika has had to learn how to talk like an older person. You know, it's not her imitating it. I didn't want her imitating an older person. I want her to be that older person.
Right.
And so she's had some talent coaching from Sharon Reed and Jackie Watkins and Michael Hurd, you know, just in terms of affecting her voice. So Tamika Mason, watch out for her, because this young lady is, oh man, she's talented. A lot of people know Michelle Watson. She's playing the part of Ruth, the wife. Okay. Michelle Watson, known in church circles, great singer, preacher's wife. So she's playing the part of Ruth. I mentioned Sharon Reed. Sharon Reed's not in it, but her grandson, Rashad Reed, is playing the part of the little boy Travis. Okay, and then we have LaCora Wholesome, who is a bundle of energy, man, who's playing the part of Benita. Okay, that's that she's one to watch too. She's the person who's going off to college. Now I got to ask you another question.
Here we go.
One of my RAISIN quizzes. Okay.
He lives for these quizzes for me. I don't know what it is.
Where does the title come from? A Raisin in the Sun.
A Raisin in the Sun. I'm gonna need that history lesson from you right now, sir. Go ahead and fire away.
You need to phone a friend?
I can't phone because now I've disabled it because it went off earlier in editing. Not sure, so
a raisin.
All of us.
Okay, so a raisin in the sun. First of all, just think about the image of that. A raisin in the sun. I mean, we know that a raisin is a dried up grape, right? And so a grape in the sun eventually is going to be a raisin. But now you got a raisin in the sun, so that's a dried up sucker there, man, right? Okay, a raisin in the sun. That line is from a Langston Hughes poem. So Langston Hughes, the great poet of the Harlem Renaissance, wrote a poem called A Dream Deferred. And in his poem, he says, what happens to a dream deferred? So, what happens when your dreams get put on hold, when they get put to the shelf, when you're not fully self-actualized? For black people, what happens when we are oppressed and we don't get to function in this society like everybody else. So the name
Your
of
dreams disappear.
His name of his poem was A Dream Deferred, and he says, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Okay.
A lot of you are about to lie about this as if you knew this the whole time. So we're on to you. We see you on there right now. We know you did not know that.
So he lists some things. What happens to it? Does it explode? Does it sag like a heavy load? Does it, and so there's all these different metaphors. He never uses the word racism or oppression or police brutality or anything like that, but he
just uses imagery.
Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?
Wow.
And so Lorraine Hansberry took that part of his poem, A Raisin in the Sun, and made that the title of her play that she wrote. So that's where the title comes from, a Langston Hughes poem.
I wonder if that just inspired the entire premise of the story, or if she already had something in mind and that title just jumped out.
I'm sure it did, because, I mean, you remember Walter, you know, is like a chauffeur, and he drives a white man around all day, and he bemoans the fact that he's a second-class citizen, and his son has to sleep on a couch, and he's just not happy with his life, and he feels like his dreams have dried up.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
That's super deep. Let me ask you this while we've got you here. Now, this city knows that you have a deep history of being an activist just about on every level, trying to do what we all aspire to do, which is to bridge certain gaps that right now have nothing in between. So you've been doing it a long time, and you have your own radio station. Can you tell us about your radio station that I love to be on?
Sure. WPNV, we're Peoria's neighborhood voice.
Boom.
It's the only black-owned radio station in Peoria. It's owned by the Black Business Alliance.
Right.
We're located on Southwest Adams. I'll give the address, 2139 Southwest Adams, only because we're located inside the Minority Business Development Center. And the Minority Business Development Center is an entity that was started by Denise Moore. And it is a place where you come, you learn how to write a business plan, you learn how to find financing, you learn how to find a good location for your business, you learn how to market your business.
And do you guys help finding SBA loans as well?
Right, and so we work with SCORE, we work with the Small Business Development Center at Bradley,
Perfect.
we work with ICC in terms of job training. Really, it's to empower people. You know, there are a lot of people who have ideas, entrepreneurs about business, and we make sure that, you know, their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted, you know, so that they don't go out and fail. You know, we have a lot of success stories with the incubator where people have come in and have taken off. You know, this young lady, Donise Hall, had an office in our place. She was a graphic arts designer, and by virtue of the fact that she was there, you know, Amarin, Caterpillar, you know, came in, struck a business, and she blew up, and, you know, and you have other stories, and I'm not going to, you know, pick on anybody, but, you know, some people who may go a third of the way in our boot camps or our training, or 2/3 of the way and say, oh, okay, I got this, you know, and then they go out and then they come back and they say, you know, I should have learned more about marketing, or I should have learned more about,
A little bit more.
you know, finances, or, you know, this kind of thing. So we're proud of the fact that, you know, we, on average, we get about, you know, 15 or 25 people that come to our monthly meetings. And then in our boot camps, we have a healthy number of people. We had...
Can you tell them what your boot camp is?
So there's a business boot camp where you come through and you learn everything from A to Z in terms of business. And like I said, how to write a business plan, how to find a good location, how to market your business, how to network, how to relate to your customers,
Right.
you know, all of that, and et al. And then when you get done with that, you're ready. You're ready. All you need is now it requires your drive, you know, because we've basically given you all the tools that you need.
He's going to lead you to water, and what happens when you get to that water? You got to know how to drink.
You're going to have to drink. Yeah.
The preparation's right here. So all of you out there that are aspiring, I'd be one of the first people to look into what this man's doing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Except on Sundays. Sundays he's hanging with us. But
Right.
other than that.
So in conclusion, you know, the radio station is inside the Minority Business Development Center. So you could look at us as like a wing of the development center. And we have a program called Dollars and Cents that's sponsored by SEFCU. And on that program, we talk all things financial. You know, we talk about, we interview some BBA members, people who are members of the Black Business Alliance. We talk about things like financing and how to be a good entrepreneur and different aspects of business on that program. We have 4 public affairs programs on WPNV. One I host called Newsmakers, which is a topical program that talks about things that's happening in the news. We've been doing a lot of stuff on the election and the Trump administration. We've done stuff, unfortunately, when we had shootings in our city. We had one of the best programs that we did last year, was it the year before, was on the Bomb Squad moms came into our studio. Wow. And these were the mothers of those guys that got those stiff sentences from the state's attorney's office, and talked about how, and basically pled their case. They admitted that, hey, our sons are not saints, they did some stuff, but in their view, they were not, at the level that the state's attorney had. You can't say
elect Chris McCall, because we do need that kind of change up there for sure.
We had Chris McCall on our program when he first announced, and we did a nice 15 minutes with him. I did go to the Peoria County Democrats gathering where Senator Dick Durbin was the speaker, and all the candidates were there. We're going to have some interesting primaries because you got Chris McCall running against Jody Hoos, and I invited Jody Hoos to come on the radio station and come on the program to talk about her things, and I'm hoping that she will. And ideally I'd like to get her and Chris to talk about and to vet and flesh out.
Oh, on the same program?
Yeah, if they would agree to it. But if not,
that would be.
If not, I'll just get him and then get her, and just talk about the issues. Maybe ask her that question about the marijuana thing. This is my first time hearing about that.
Yeah.
In the Peoria County Clerk's race, you have Gabe McLeod running against Rachel Parker, who now occupies that seat. Right. And so we've had Rachel on, and I was at the dinner and invited Gabe to come on. So I kind of, I still have some of the journalists in me. Yeah, for sure. I still have my own preferences, but I don't publicly state them, but I try and give our listeners a good, broad dose of information. We're Peoria's neighborhood voice. You should be able to hear all views, on our radio station.
Well, you're like what a true journalist should be. You should never interject your own personal feelings into it and just give people the nuts and bolts of it. And then you leave the interjection for people like me to just jump in. Vote Chris McCall!
Although I do have some very strong opinions when it comes to national politics. And I think a lot of people who listen to the program
that's
know
an
that.
Entire other show right there. That's a 90-minute segment.
Yeah. But you know what? It all kind of relates to, I don't want to say it all gets back to a Raisin in the Sun, but this whole idea of African Americans, this is 2020, and we still are experiencing some issues that I think a lot of us thought would have gone away by now.
Yeah, for sure.
As one of the theater productions that I've done in the city from time to time is Black to the Future, which is based on Dr. Garrett's book, A Negro in Peoria. Dr. Romeo B. Garrett, first black professor at Bradley, wrote a book about the Negro in Peoria, and it was from that book that we did our play, and it started with DuSable, who founded the city of Chicago, but lived in Peoria for 10 years before he went to Chicago. A lot of people familiar with Madam C.J. Walker, but are not familiar with Annie Malone, who was at Central High School, who did hair care and taught Madam C.J. Walker. And Dr. Maud Sanders, first black female physician in Peoria, couldn't open her office in the hospitals because they were segregated, and had to open her office above a car repair shop. And so our history in Peoria, we have a lot of heroes and sheroes, and the question that
sheroes, I love that.
that keeps coming up is how come we as black people still deal with some of these issues. Right. And AJ being in the schools, we were talking before we went on, one of the answers, it's not the answer, but one of the answers is that we as a community have to step up.
big time.
And we have to do a little more, especially in the area of parenting. You know,
And more than talk. Talk's not it. It's not it. It's action. It's accountability. You have to really, really believe in what you're doing and apply that forward. You can't change anything with good intentions or good thoughts. You actually have to do the work. And that's what he's talking about. It has to be built, and that has to start in the homes.
and sometimes even if you as a parent have not had a good experience out here in the world, in school, maybe you didn't have a good school experience, or maybe you didn't, you fell on hard times or got into some bad habits or something like that. But if you have a child, if you can just challenge yourself to say, I want their lives to be better than mine.
Right.
I don't know how to play chess, but he's interested, so I'm gonna take him to chess lessons. I don't know how to ice skate. I never got into that, but my daughter wants to, she watched the figure skating, and so I'm gonna take her to a thing. Just kind of get out of your comfort zone as a parent to broaden your child's horizons. You agree?
Yeah, I agree totally. And
He lives by that.
I was definitely going to get into exactly what you're talking about, because you've been how long have you been living here in Peoria?
Since '76.
And with the news station since then.
Right.
So during that time period, if you could pinpoint one, two or three things that has changed over the years to put Peorians and our families in the situations that they are in today, what can you pinpoint?
Positively or negatively?
Either one.
Either one. I was here to see how Peoria dealt with the whole crack epidemic. And we had our share of crack babies here, and it was very, demoralizing. The Southtown Redevelopment Project, I came during the time where that was happening, where the city of Peoria promised that when it was going to tear down these houses and build new developments and stuff like that, and that never happened.
Right. Okay.
And I think that set a lot of people back, and with that intersecting the drug deal, I think that was a big negative.
Okay. Yeah.
And then during the 80s, again, I'm going national politics, with Reagan, from 80 to 88, and then Bush, his vice president, going from 80 to 92, you had 12 years of conservative fiscal policies that did filter down to the local level. And so when it came to affirmative action, when it came to a lot of those things that we had fought for and won in the 60s and 70s, you started to see a lot of those things roll back in the 80s. And, these are things that, you can't see them necessarily, you can't put your hands on them.
Right.
But it results in the Urban League used to have the summer youth employment program, and then now all of a sudden, instead of, them, and I'm screwing up these numbers, my apologies to Lorraine Bryson, but, so now we used to have 50 kids working, now it's, 15, and so those are the kinds of negative things that I saw and reported on. On the positive side, I think, we've always benefited from strong leadership, and I've just been impressed with a number of people stepping up, to take on leadership roles. I mean, AJ is a leader. I mean, think about, when Kobe died, people were talking a lot about life after basketball, and for athletes, knowing that, you're only going to be in this game for into your 30s, and then after that you're gonna have to join the rest of us.
30 years left, 40 years left.
To live your life, and so I mean, the stuff that he's doing. I mean, just to recognize that, hey, there's a need. For me to use my expertise and my skills to get into the schools, where we have a captive audience every day, and impart my wisdom on these young people. And I've just seen a lot of things like that, with Carl Cannon, Carl Holloway, Charles Minor,
Lifetime
Ekbar
program,
Bryson,
Demario Boone.
the Alphas. I'm an Alpha, but I'm not active in the grad chapter. But those guys with the go to high school, go to college program, there were just a lot of people who recognized that, hey, we got some problems and we need to step in the gap and
Absolutely.
Well, that's one of the big factors behind the show that we do, is we're trying to broaden that spotlight and kind of shed light on to the people that are in the community that do make these kind of differences. Obviously, you're one of them. That's why it was important that we had you here to speak about, a number of things.
And if I could end with one, selfish plug, I would be slapped if I went home, if I didn't acknowledge one of the sheroes.
Yes.
Right.
Food won't be ready.
Denise Moore, and I'm biased.
You're biased.
Yeah,
Denise Moore, really?
as
That's shocking.
Wow. The first district councilwoman. For years in front of Tree Wind School, kids had to walk in the street and had to walk on, and when it was snowing and stuff like that. She came in, and within a short amount of time of her being in office, now she's on the city council. She's got to convince a majority of the council members to vote for these projects.
No easy task.
When there's no money, it's like we ain't got no money, And so they did that whole Tree Wind Folker Street thing. That was Denise Moore driven. They're getting ready this year to do Western Avenue. Western. They hadn't touched Western in 30-some years.
Probably longer.
Okay. And so you're going to have a Western Avenue renovation project. On MacArthur, a lot of people complain, oh, what did they do with MacArthur? Hey, we had a lot of near misses with kids getting hit or almost getting hit. Now you can park alongside Martin Luther King Park and park your car, and the kids can go to the park instead of having to traverse that with that higher speed limit.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Money for people to do renovations to their homes. So so you got people doing that. Rita Ali's on the city council now. And so we've had a number of people. That's one of to answer your question. I've seen people step up and put on their superhero capes. And say, I'm going to do something positive for these kids.
Absolutely.
Well, shining a light on that, that's one of the, like I said, the main thing that we ventured off into trying to do this for. Have a little fun, talk about everything Peoria, but mainly to spotlight these individuals that, just like you said, they've got the cape on, but nobody sees it. Now, they'll see the kids walking across and they'll be like, oh, that's great. They should have done that years ago, with no thought to what it took for them years to just make that happen today. So shout out to all you daily heroes out there with your super capes, man.
And sheroes.
Yeah, and sheroes. I love that one.
We had solid parents, obviously his parents were great, his parents were good, my parents were there working, they worked 9 to 5 as well, same situations, but it seemed like my childhood was so enjoyable, and I learned so much, and I explored so much, but now it seems like, you mentioned the parents they're not as solid in the homes. So when it comes to single mother homes and single parent homes,
but and to an extent that was always with us.
Yeah, it's always there.
And so you have to ask yourself critically what has changed. And so one thing, my brother is a psychologist, and he uses these weird analogies like the pizza pie.
Right.
Okay, so you got the crust, and it's 300 years of slavery. And you got the sauce, and it's 100 years of discrimination. And then you got the cheese, and that's, whatever. And so so no matter how you slice it, you're going to always get some of that. So maybe the crust is thin for you. Maybe this aspect of our oppression isn't as much of a factor for your family as that aspect was for mine, and so to some degree we all experience the same thing, only in varying degrees, and so I would argue that one of the big factors that I witnessed, because I am in media and a student of media, I study media, is media changed. And I'm not saying that's the big reason. I mean, I mentioned the politics and, you know, on the national level and some other stuff and crack and whatever. But media definitely is a force to be reckoned with for our young people to an extent that it wasn't for us when we were growing up.
Yeah, it wasn't.
You know, I mean, we grew up with the Flintstones and Gilligan's Island and Andy Griffith.
News at 5, that was it.
And, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, these kids
Three's Company.
have R-rated and X-rated YouTube videos. And music was different.
Yeah,
you know, I was telling a group today, you know, there's a big difference between me driving around listening to "You're a Shining Star" no matter who you are, and you driving around listening to "I Got My Glock, I'm a clear block." You know, I mean, it's a whole different.
It's so different.
Well, we come from a time when music was good, so.
Well, I wouldn't. I'm not going to criticize.
Oh, I would.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
You know, but there's just so we had Richard Pryor. I'm wearing his shirt.
Yes.
He was R-rated. He was R-rated, X-rated, but his albums were underground. Okay, you didn't play your album that Richard Pryor around Mama. You didn't, you know, right? I mean, and so we understood that there was, and then he was one of 10 things that we listened to.
Right.
So we might be listening to Richard Pryor, but we're also listening to Earth, Wind and Fire and Shaka Khan, and, you know, this kind of thing. Now, unfortunately, to your point, a lot of the music, not, you know, War Muhammad would say 95% of it is X-rated, R-rated, where you're talking about sex explicitly. You know, when we were growing up, when Marvin Gaye did "Let's Get It On," people were like, "Oh, he's talking about Let's Get It On," or "Sexual Healing." It was like, "Oh my, you know, don't be playing sexual healing." Now you got female rappers who are talking about how
Groceries, eating things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, who are being very explicit.
Right. Yeah.
That's a big difference.
It is.
And so you got sex, you got the thug life being celebrated in music. You know, bang bang N-word at your funeral. I mean, that's a song. You know, and then the materialism. You know, I think all of us, you know, we like things, we like stuff. You know, but it's you know, I'm making it rain. I got $50,000 on my wrist. I got the Bentley, I got the, you know, that's so glorified. You know, and then the fourth element, like you mentioned, Molly Percocet. You know, you got drugs in that too. And that's, to answer your question, I think that's one major thing in media that has changed.
I agree.
And so our kids are, man, it makes you kind of fortunate that you grew up in the era that you did, where the music was more wholesome. And the last thing I'll say about that, you know, is this. Inside my head right now, I have the Gilligan's Island song. Just sit right back in your ear. I got the Andy Griffith whistle. I got the Flintstones, Meet the Flintstones. I got Two All Beef. I got all this stuff in my head. This mindless junk that's in my head. I'm more than 60 years old. This stuff got in my head when I was 10, 12, 14 years old. Okay. The concern that I have, and I think you have, and I think you share, is that what's getting in the heads of the 10, 12, 14-year-olds now? You know, it's not Gilligan's Island. You know, I don't want my grandson, when he's 60,
Molly Percocet.
to be walking around with
that's what
this,
he remembers.
with this, you know, my brother, the psychiatrist, we talk about soft pavement. You know, when you lay down a sidewalk and that cement is soft, and you can write, you know, Titus loves AJ. And
My wife, AJ.
right.
There's two AJs. There's Guyton and there's my wife, AJ. That's what we're talking about.
And draw a heart, and when it hardens, it's there, forever. And that's what we're talking about, is impressionable young minds. And when you talk about media, and that's my concern, you know, as a student of media, is that, you know, you gotta, parents, you know, put your kid on a media diet, and not have them
Media diet.
consume as much of the stuff that you call bad music, you know, and then expose them to other stuff.
Other things.
You know, I was teaching music at Harrison, and the thing I was telling the kids was black music is more than just hip hop.
Right.
It's blues, it's jazz, it's R&B, it's, you know, spirituals, it's gospel, it's, you know, it's like we got a whole range of stuff to choose from. And so, you know, again, you may...
There's country and there's rock in there too, by the way.
Right. I mean, you may be into a certain world, but if you're a parent, just try to expose your child to more than what you were exposed to.
So Gary, I want to thank you for stopping.
So you're going to come to a Raisin in the Sun?
Absolutely.
Yeah, a Raisin in the Sun, man.
I know the director now, so we're good.
And Peoria players.
Player.